Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Pajodcast Farms. If you were eagerly awaiting the debate that we were going to have last time, you're going to have to wait another episode because I don't feel like talking about it. Just kidding. Fucking crow! Son of a bitch.
God damn it.
Yeah.
Okay, there's petals falling everywhere.
Yep,
Hello.
there are. I don't really know why that is.
Pajodcast Farms, we're here at Suplex City Farms, episode
7, 8? I don't fucking know anymore.
We're recording these in backlog.
Yeah.
During a series of days that are, happening.
Which is how we try to do most of our content, but it hasn't always worked out.
We were engaged in a pretty interesting
Conversation?
debate over, well, it kind of started with just the nature of
Pronunciation and language.
Pronunciation,
yes,
but like as a means of like streamlining conversation.
Yeah,
like we're doing it so that it's you can convey your ideas easier to me, so I can understand them. Like fundamentally, I was saying I understand and kind of agree with that principle, but I was also arguing that there's kind of an ethical dilemma that I have with that, of like trying to create a world where everyone's kind of fitting the same guidelines of this is what is a perfect version of how to converse, how to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you kind of see us going that way sometimes online to a degree.
Sure.
I mean, with some people, right? And
yeah, for sure.
Conversely, you see people who do the opposite of that. But my argument was that's why you see people lobby so hard the opposite for it, is because there are people who push this perfectionism or like streamlined angle so hard that people that's not human. Like that's not what we are.
Okay, so hang on. I'm going to address that real quick because we're going to go into too many different directions. I'm not going to remember to address all of your points if you go into too many. I'm not trying to cut you off either. It's just like
no. I was just recapping.
Yeah, for sure. Fair. Yeah, because it has been a week for everybody else. So real quick, we're apparently tomorrow we're holding an egg festival.
Would Brock Lesnar go to the egg festival?
I mean, I think that if you go into town, we don't have any choice. So we'd either have to sit on
the egg hunt. I think we should just go adventuring that day. Revenge of the Slime.
But when we want hunting though, Ryan, hunting.
It's eggs though.
Yeah, I don't have any mail. Okay, so, before I lose track of where I was going with that.
Yeah.
Do you agree or disagree that that everyone must have some sort of goal in life?
Disagree. 100%.
Disagree? Okay. So what is the point of life then?
Listen, you're starting to ask questions that everyone is going to ask themselves, and I'm sure everyone's going to have a litany of different answers.
Yeah, for sure.
For me, this question, and this probably speaks more to me like from a global perspective, and probably might explain some more of my views. That question is irrelevant.
Right, and like I know a few of these questions, like the answers to these questions, because we've had these conversations before.
And I'll just state why I believe this way. I understand there are some people that, from a religious perspective, are looking to gain purpose, or from like I'm going to set individual goals for purpose. I am not atheist. I'm agnostic. I believe wasting your time on the question of should I or shouldn't I exist, and what does that mean, is I literally that a waste, because I don't believe humanity is going to attain the answer to that question, at least not in my lifetime. For better or for worse, I do not know what my purpose is here. I am going to live my life imperfectly in the moment. I'm going to make some long-term decisions, some short-term decisions. I'm not going to guide that by some principle or some, like, to me, like, one of the things I absolutely hate in any regard is an absolute. I think it is the most evil thing of all, because an absolute can turn you from the hero to the villain in a matter of no time. It takes no account for situation, for context. So I'm always an open mind. I will always approach a situation with zero expectation. Okay. I might have thoughts about something going in, but I just won't say, because I believe this, I always have to choose this. Like, right. Okay. So that is awful. Like, I could never do that, because it just doesn't, like I said, it doesn't account for the variety of life. Like, there's just too many things. Like, so to your point, like, I wouldn't want to have like, I wouldn't, if I saw someone who had zero goals, I might try to talk with them about it. But if that person indicated to me that they don't want to have any goals, I'm okay with that. Like, that's part of life. You know, there are people who are defeated. There are people who are at different points.
Yeah, sure, but what's the point at that point? Like, why do you live if you don't have some sort of a goal that you're trying to accomplish?
But I'm not God. Like it's not for me to determine whether they have a right to live or not.
No, not them. Hang on.
Whether they should have goals or not.
Not, but whether they should. I'm saying I'm not saying like. But what is the point? I'm not saying they have to justify it to me. I'm saying, what is the point of living if you don't have some sort of a goal? Like, why do you get up every day if you're not trying to do something?
Ask those people. What is their point?
No, I'm asking in general. We're talking about. We're not talking about an individual case. I can ask 100 different people and get 100 different answers. What is the point of living if you don't have some sort of a goal? Why is it worth existing without some sort of a goal for people in general?
But here's why does it have to be worth existing? Existence is. That's all. Done.
Nope.
Conversation over. There's 8 billion existence. It is because you can, Kyle. So when you look at science, like when we look at space, for example, and there was like a recent, I remember talking to you guys about this, about how in space is expanding so fast, like the actual speed of like light is not even fast enough to keep up with how fast space is expanding. They actually believe that space is expanding so much that we would never ever in history be able to catch up with it. Which means there will always be things you will never know, period.
Sure.
If you cannot accept the reality that things just happen at random, because that's what they do. That's how we are born. In 8 bajillion years, there was nothing. And then the boom. That's like, and then even then, in the boom, how many millions of years of non-sentient life did we go through before we existed? It is all fucking random. It is. It's just scientifically proven. So there doesn't have to be meaning. There is no worth because there is no meaning to it. It just is.
Right, so that's
define your meaning.
Bullshit
you define your meaning. If you define your meaning, that means everyone can define their meaning. If someone says, I've given up and my existence is nothing and I'm just going to fade into it, I don't have to agree with that decision, but I can respect it because they have the right to make it.
Yeah, sure, but that's actually giving an answer. Hang on. That's giving an answer. If they like, I'll just fade into it is giving an answer, but that's their goal at that point. It's just let things happen. Yeah.
But they don't wake up and sit down and think I have a goal.
You don't. When did I say you have to do that?
But why is it important? Like, why are we focusing on it? Why is it even relevant? Why can't we talk about something else? Like, again, this plays.
You get uncomfortable whenever I ask you these questions. It seems.
Okay, we were talking about Black Mirror in previous episodes because it reminds me of heading in that direction. We're focusing on the wrong things. You're targeting the things that people have.
Who are you to decide that we're focusing on the wrong things? People can focus on whatever they want, Ryan.
Of course they can. Of course they can. I'm asking you philosophically. What do you gain from focusing on this?
From having a goal.
What do you think you gain?
I learn things.
Of what? Of what?
Anything. Whatever I'm trying to learn at that time, or whatever happens.
Give me an example.
Okay, so. Going back into so actually this was something I was trying to get into earlier.
Sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt you. I'm actually not talking debate here. I'm just going to say for those listening, this might seem like a heated debate, but if you are a casual listener to our show, our tones are not actually as indicative of our.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any bad feels right now. We're very passionate people.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, if anyone's getting uncomfortable,
come to my parents' house for a weekend, and everyone would be like, "Oh my god,
yeah,
it is so loud." It's like actually, yeah, but we're not really yelling. It's just we're impassioned debaters. But anyway, go ahead, Kyle.
Okay, so when you asked me before, we haven't come to a consensus on whether or not people have to have a goal. I think that they do, and I'm doing a poor job explaining.
But to what does that mean?
It is impossible to not. Not society pressures you to have a goal. You have to have a goal to exist, or you will just do nothing. There is some sort of a goal, right?
But there are people
at the base level,
do nothing.
No, they live. That's a goal. Staying alive is a goal for them.
What about people on assisted living? Who have no goals?
They still stay alive.
But not by them. Someone else keeps them alive. They're assisted living. Someone feeds them. Someone cleans them.
Conscious? I don't know. At that point.
Yeah, some old people are like that.
Yeah. They want to stay alive. They want their body to stop not existing. Anyway, hang on. We're going off on another tangent. So, I
just want to briefly say regarding the last thing. Like, this is exactly kind of what I'm talking about. I feel like and this isn't just indicative of you. I feel like as a society, we're focusing too much not on just the things that are like that separate us, but the things like this, the specifics that don't teach us anything. Like, it's like, look at what we're talking about right now. We're talking about extreme hypotheticals about these philosophical debate, about the philosophy here, and even the ethics of should people have or not have a goal. And it's just like, you're using that, and look at the edge case we're using. What about people on assisted living? What, like, those specifics are so, like, we need to be talking big picture.
No. Actually, Ryan, one of the best ways to try to, like, whether a thought that you have
edge
is...
cases will always exist.
Yeah, edge cases will always exist. But hang on, let me finish.
Like, you're not actually going to change
when you have a philosophy
right?
about something, you almost want to test it against the most extreme cases to see if it holds up, right?
No, because
yes.
nothing holds up. Like,
no, that doesn't mean anything. That's literally a nonsense sentence.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
Sigh
Indeed. Okay, so what I was trying to get at before, my goal in life is is knowledge. So when I ask questions, like when you were saying before, when it came back to, there's so many different avenues we've gone down. When it came down to, like, why bother correcting that person? Because I might learn something. So when you said, like, when you mispronounce Farah's name, I can say nothing, and then nobody will learn anything at all. Like, because there's no statement.
It's not just the idea
of let me finish. Or I could learn something from that conversation. I might learn something about, I was actually wrong. Her name actually is something. Or like, oh no, those kind of things are related. I could learn something from that. Or I could learn something about you in, like, why do you think that's pronounced differently? Because those could lead to different stories sometimes, right? Like, you're like, oh no, but because I always thought this because of this thing from when I was a kid, and then that can lead down a different avenue. If you don't ask those questions, or you don't attempt to correct, you might miss out on learning something. If you say nothing, then nothing can happen. If you say something, something can happen.
Listen. But there's a big difference between doing what, like, that's such a cop. Like, that's
is it though?
A cop. Yes, it is.
I use that as a specific example, but
here's I'll give you an example.
Okay, hit me.
When we had a friend come over recently to our place, he revealed that he was a Trump supporter.
Okay.
So I'm not going to get into, like, the whole debate of...
No, just give me the relevant stuff. That's fine.
I didn't stop and correct, like, the issue. My issue isn't your search for knowledge, it's how you go about obtaining it. It's like you sit there and say, well, I'm looking to get feedback from them, I'm looking to gather feedback so I can collect as much knowledge as possible. So then gather feedback, don't correct them. You understand what I'm saying? You're opening it going, elitism. Correction is elitism. Don't correct.
That's not true.
Yes, it is.
It's not.
It is. You're saying immediately, when you say, well, you didn't pronounce that correctly, you're instantly inferring you're doing something wrong. That's the instant inference. Couldn't you just say, I didn't know it was pronounced that way? Like, there's so many different ways to do that other than correction.
If I'm a beta bitch. No, I'm just kidding.
No. If you want to gain knowledge, go for it. But you don't have to correct to do that. You can gain the exact same things you're looking for, but do it by conveying a completely different tone.
So
that's where you start to get into the concept of the elitisms that I look at, because then you start going, like, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. That's irrelevant. If you're looking for opportunities to correct people to make yourself feel better, that's elitism. You're looking to find out.
Feel better. It's about making me.
I'm not saying you are, but I'm saying if
no, hang on.
If you're sitting there going, well, this is an opportunity where I can find an uneducated person, and I know it because I've already found a moment I can correct them, and now I'm going to be able to look smart and make myself.
I don't care about looking smart. I care about learning a thing. Okay,
I never said you did. I never said you did. I'm saying like that's you start like it. I'm basically saying you've already crossed the line at that point, and the dark avenue's open. You might not be doing that, but at that point, how do I have any way of knowing?
You could ask.
Like you've opened with, but you opened with that elitist. I just.
Okay, so when I'm making these statements, I'm going to be speaking specifically about myself and not about general people. You're making an assumption, which in life you kind of have to, right? In certain cases, when somebody acts in a certain way.
But I'm making the argument that as you might be at the line. You might be at the line.
Yeah.
And you've made compelling arguments to say, oh, well, I'm not trying to be elitist. I'm just trying to gain knowledge. Like, I understand the philosophy. But that's my point, right? It's the slant of, it's not about what you do. It's about why and how you do it. I'm not disputing that what you do makes sense. I'm saying that when you put that slant on it, like the correct slant, like, oh, it has to be this way, you might not be saying it has to be this way, but it's easy to infer it that way when you come from the angle of correction.
Sure, but somebody can ask me if that's what I mean, or
But why and that's where I start going, but why does it have to be a correction? Why can't we just talk about it? Why does it have to start with the correction? And then you said, well, it's just, and you talked about us, striving to be perfect, striving.
Yeah, I'm striving to be consistency.
Yes,
yeah.
But it feels like without even trying, and maybe not even intentionally, you are then pressing that on people through that correction.
I would say that it
let's assume I'm not me. Let's assume I'm not me. Okay, let's assume I have zero self-confidence, and let's assume that I seriously respect you, and I would very rarely hesitate to
stand up for yourself if you felt pushing. Okay,
exactly.
Okay,
I'm a pushover.
Okay, cool.
I will probably end up being to the cult of Kyle at that point.
Yeah, so you're not wrong. Okay, so let me step in there real quick. So what I think that dude, the egg festival today, I totally forgot about that. Oh, and now it's begun. Let's go take a peek at the egg festival. Just see what's going on in town.
Now, probably in a realistic scenario, I'm not blind. If you saw people following you around blindly and not do anything, you would probably correct them and say, get an opinion of your own or something. But again, it would still be coming from that same angle of that's the irony.
Not necessarily. That would be the irony. But no. So what I would say, I speak to different people differently, Ryan. When I go in and I lean hard into the correction aspect, I tailor how I speak to you based on what I know about you. And in the case of you, I know a decent amount. You're a pretty strong-willed person, so if you disagree with something, you're gonna fucking say it.
Truth. This is
yeah.
why we're
if somebody
during the
right
egg hunt. It's okay. It's just an egg hunt.
Yeah, it's just an egg hunt. Fuck the egg hunt. So if I was talking to somebody who I just met, we're not ready for that shit yet. If somebody I just met, I approach that a lot differently, right? Here's a good example. When I'm at work, people say dumb shit all the time.
A different story altogether. But like this is, and I'll actually state this is kind of where as much as I think it's not I might be for the free-form version of humanity, not complete anarchy. At the same time, I recognize from a societal perspective there are certain standards that have to be met to keep with the ability to run society, obviously, clearly, and it's one of the reasons why I, even though I'm a supporter of free speech and freedoms, I get that when you work with someone, if you have a personal opinion that is negative, we respect your right to have it, but you cannot state it openly around the office to a point if you're in an office job, for example, but to the point like someone's berated, right? That's we need to work together. That's just the reality. You can have your opinion at home. We're not saying you can't have it. I get that. There's elements that's yes, to function in society.
Or just when you're dealing with the public, right?
To me,
not even just my coworkers, my guests.
To me, I view this stuff from a practical perspective, right? I just go, these people still need an ability to release this, because if we don't let them release it, like anything, it builds and then it creates something that is bigger and worse.
Yeah.
Than we ever imagined, right? Again, it's to me, it's about being responsible at all times and recognizing that, if we're saying we're better, which, listen, I'm not saying we are, but there are people who have that mindset, right? It's
sure, there are. That's a flaw on their part. I would say.
You're a redneck, so I'm better than you because I'm smarter, and I have a more
those people. I think have a limited worldview, right? They put everyone on a linear tier system. Whereas I would say, I think it's fair to make a statement I'm better at this, or I'm better at that, or I'm better in these ways. But I don't think I think it's more of a branching tree rather than a line. Well, it's not I have these qualities and you have these qualities, therefore I am just objectively better than you. The only way you could make that statement is if you could literally pick out every single individual trait, and if you were literally just better at all of them, right? We'll use you and I as an example. If I was just better at literally cooking, cleaning, relationships, talking, public speaking, coding, if you could, we can't list everything, right? We don't do it, but if I could literally come to that point where I could say literally at everything, then I could make that statement objectively. But you won't be able to find that practically anywhere, because there's got to be something that you're better at, right? Again, we're obviously talking generalities. I'm not saying I'm better at any of those things. At some point you might you may be better at cleaning the tube. If you're just a human being who lives in a tube, more about being in hospitals because you've spent so much time at that point, right? You can't make the statement that someone's objectively better.
Yes, from a skills perspective,
not even just in life.
The people are clearly better at some things than
others.
Obviously,
right. But people who say I'm better because
it's the age old. It's not sexist to say Shaq is a better basketball player than Shaq is a better basketball player as a man than a woman, just because of genetic advantages. Yes, he's freaking nearly
Well, even then, that might be too broad of a statement, because what if you found a woman Shaq was famously good at certain things and bad at other things, right? He couldn't throw a free throw to save his life. So could you?
Yes, but like
if you find a woman who can sink threes all day, it's like he might have a better genetic advantage, but I mean, like, then it's what you value more.
If you ignore a woman, like, you know, even as men, like, we're not better at basketball than him.
No, and that actually kind of got to a good point though. When people make that statement, what they're saying is, I'm better. Like when someone says I'm better than you, it's I'm better at you at the things that I value, right? I think that being smart, like somebody who says I'm better than a redneck, thinks it's important to be intellectually honest and intelligent. Like if we're going with the stereotypical redneck, where it's like I believe what I believe, and y'all better just let me be, or I'm gonna shoot you. Like when you. Obviously, when people
that's a stereotype, but
right? But that's when people say I'm better than a redneck. They're assigning the values to a stereotype. That's a flaw that they're making. I'm acknowledging that.
Yeah, but that kind of speaks to exactly what my problem with this. You know, as we started this conversation, my problem with this version of the world that we're getting into, and why it bugs me. Like why even that little push on the line of like correctionism bugs me, because it's just like it starts to push a little bit in that direction, like as we need to be this way, you have to be this way.
We're hunting
and
for
even
eggs.
if like, you're not you're not meaning that, but like that's like that's kind of the direction it heads in, and I'm just like, man, but it like you were saying earlier about my brain is just like,
I know we're going to do a lot of different fucking what? Okay, we're going into a lot of different directions. And neither of us are professional debaters nor philosophy experts, so it's a little bit difficult to keep on top of these things. Especially,
sorry.
I'm in the middle of playing a game at the same time too.
About like that enlightened person just using stereotypes for
that unenlightened person, I would argue that's a flaw on their part. Like when they say I'm better. Sure. They're saying I'm better at the things that I value, but then they're making the assumption that like I value this, therefore this is better. I would never make that argument. I would
Like,
I would say
my problem with that is like it all comes from this philosophy, like we're focusing on the wrong things, as I was saying. Like from my perspective, we are like I just don't see how like we focus on, as a humanity, we tend to focus on things that, first of all, we always focus on negatives more than positive. It's one of the worst things we do. I hate it. It's awful to see at a large scale that the internet has allowed us to do, because it's like you see things like, oh, look, all these horrible stories about horrible things that are the worst things of all time to happen in humanity, which are still going on and will always be going on no matter what any of us do.
Dude, we won the egg hunt and we got a straw hat. These are the stories that get the bajillionest views, but yet, good stories are stories that focus on how we're not, monsters. Like nobody gives a shit. It's like, that's great. That's awesome. That's like, that kind of sucks. Ryan, we have a straw hat.
What?
We have to wear this. We have to wear the straw hat for now. Like, that's just a.
But like for me, it just comes down to like focusing on the differences.
Well, it's personal choice, right?
But why? Why are we debating the differences when we could be like? It's not even just a matter of we could be debating the things that are similar. It's like, or we could look at it from a practical perspective and recognize that regardless of whether or not you're the person who's been to Ivy League education and aren't redneck, like, and you have the opinion about these stereotypes, we need all of you in society for it to work.
Yeah,
that's how it works. If we focus on our differences and hate each other for them, then we're just divided and nothing works.
Yeah,
you're not gaining anything.
I don't think
you sit there and go, well, I gain knowledge. It's like, well, what? Like, we need to still work together. Like I don't know. Like,
yeah. So I celebrate our differences, but I like knowing where they come from, right? So this is I'm having a lot of difficulty trying to keep a conversation and play a game at the same time, especially even when it's a non-strenuous game.
I'll just say, like, it's like the big thing to me is like, as someone who's not into correctionism in general, that's something I'm like, at the same time, I'll be like sitting in line, like at the grocery store, look at the gossip mags. Do you read that shit? Like, I don't, but like I don't read it, but like, look at the covers and I'm just like, this is what we're paying attention to.
Yep.
This is what people are legitimately spending time paying attention to and judging. Like relationship statuses of pseudo fake celebrities and making big deals about their freaking what money they spend on transplant. What the hell is happening? What are we focusing on? The most frivolous, useless fucking shit and hating about it and creating more like, I just can't. And that's all from that same angle, correctionism. That's all from that. Well, she's not living her life ideally. She cheated on her husband. Like, who cares?
Well,
who fucking cares?
I mean, that falls back to my philosophy. You can do whatever you want that makes you happy as long as you don't hurt other people. Unless you have an open relationship, you have made an agreement with said person to not cheat on them. So
but
you're hurting other
why do we
people.
as a society care about that one person out of 8 billion relationship?
I mean,
why is it even relevant?
People have decided that they care about
because
how that
people have
person lives.
decided that they have no goals, Kyle, and they want to waste time looking at Kim Kardashian's relationship status. Well, that's the truth.
Ryan, Kim Kardashian's married to Kanye West, so we know her relationship status.
So by pushing for correctionism, we have instead created an enslavement where people are judging people, even though they don't need none of that on their own. Judging people based on no merits of their own, because society doesn't look like the push for perfection. Society doesn't even look close to that version. It's not even in fact, most of the people pushing for that are the furthest thing from that perfectionism themselves.
Yeah,
and are actually goalless. So we're basically already in horror hell.
I mean, when we say goalless, I think it's like maybe non-fulfilling goals. Obviously, they still have some sort of goal.
If you work a job at a convenience store for your whole life and you don't give any thought to going further, I'd say you live a goalless life.
Right,
that's probably a fair assessment. Right?
I mean, I like the letter of the word. I would disagree, but that's because maybe
they're just trying to save money. But no, because then you would sit there and go. The moment you would sit down and practically think about a goal, you would realize that spending time at a convenience store making minimum wage or just above it is not going to let you attain any goal. Unless your goal was not do anything.
Well, everyone's base goal has to be to not die, because obviously if they don't have that base goal, they will die at some point, right? So, you can't really say like, oh, if they're just wasting time at a convenience store. Sometimes people just get a shitty hand to start with, and it's like I need this to not die right now.
Like, I feel like you see this in every aspect too. Like, there's obviously lots of different perspectives, and there's lots of different groups that focus on different aspects of the world and focus on different areas in every different category, right? Like, whether you're talking politics, whether you're talking fashion, whether we're talking like the celebrity, it doesn't matter. There's lots of different mindsets of all that stuff. But it seems like the overwhelming majority, when you look at any perspective, is always not only divided, like there's always that, that left versus right, if you will, that's each side, those are the biggest groups, and they happen to be fighting about the most useless thing, the most irrelevant thing. Like in politics, it doesn't matter that both our people, our contestants are the worst, that the whole system's fucked. Let's fight about which one of our worst candidates is a little bit better.
Yeah.
What?
But
what? Wake up! And
yeah, I don't know if you remember though. I was like, these are both terrible. And that's really unfortunate. Obviously, in this case, we're talking about the American system.
Yes. Well, I mean, our system is at that point now.
It's not quite as bad. It's not a two-party system. Like, I mean, technically, it's not.
I know a lot of people who voted Trudeau because they didn't want to vote Harper. When we're getting to that point, you're starting to be like,
well, sort of, but they had other options, right? Like, realistically, in the States,
management of our government from a financial perspective is trash.
Perhaps, but
that's not a perhaps.
Hang on. So people voted, like they said that I voted for Trudeau because I think is the best chance of beating Harper. It wasn't I have to vote Trudeau or Harper will get in. It's I think that if like they had a multi we have a dwarf scroll. I have a multi-party system, and I hate this one candidate so much that I am willing to see literally anybody else get in. That's not the case in the States, right? It's if you don't support Hillary Clinton, you are therefore supporting Donald Trump and vice versa, right? Because Gary Aleppo Johnson and Jill Stein never had a realistic chance of getting in, whereas Tom Mulcair kind of did.
I mean, not really,
but towards the end he didn't, because he kind of did a shitty job of the trail. But heading into that,
I felt it was pretty obvious Trudeau was good.
I thought it was incredibly likely, but I think it's fair to say that Mulcair was closer to Trudeau and Harper in sort of a scale of likeliness to succeed than Johnson or Stein was to.
To be fair, I'm not denying that the
Clinton
American system is much worse. The American system is the pro wrestling version of politics.
Yeah,
it's basically
hot garbage.
It's basically a theater at this point.
It is. Debates.
Whereas ours is already at that level that America used to be at, of just corrupt, shitty, lying politicians who are starting to push down the path of just ideology over policy. But you still get a little bit of like our politicians this time around, even though I think that all of them weren't great. they're still politicians. They're just shit politicians. It sucks that we have to choose between shit politicians, but that's what, that at least they're still politicians. But see, then I start looking at the perspective of, remember, they used to be politicians, and this is how America used to be. That's one of the scariest things about Canada that I don't like. We mirror ourselves sometimes too much in the States, and you can see us slanting that direction. And I'm like, I don't want to go that way.
So I don't really pay attention to politics in my daily life, so I don't feel confident making a statement one way or the other. But like, before I go into vote, I always do my due diligence and figure out exactly what I'm signing myself up for, right? Like, I'll look into each candidate's platforms.
Yeah, but the platforms are irrelevant, so.
They are, but that's what else do we have to base them off of, right?
But that's part of my point. That's
yeah, but we don't have. There's nothing we can do about that going into any election cycle, right? We can't.
But that's not true. But
what can we do? What's the alternative?
There is alternatives. It's just people don't. There is and there isn't. There's only an alternative if people can fucking stop shutting up and stop being so divided. It's the same alternative the United States had this past election that they didn't take.
Yeah, but
I'm sure you know what that is, or.
No,
band together in a large enough people and just go to the fucking White House with millions. What are they gonna do?
Yeah,
that shit works. Look at France. Europe does that shit all the time.
Yeah, Europe also. It's easier for them to do because they have each country is relatively small by comparison population-wise.
Also, it's easier for them to do because they're not fucking sheep. Guess what? They're not new countries. They had kings and queens, and they've been doing this shit for eons.
Yeah,
shit. We got to get rid of our leaders because they are taking advantage of us. We don't have that same shit. Well, they're taking advantage of us, but our system is pretty good, and I don't have to do anything. And fuck my neighbor. Oh shit. And now we're good. Now, and actually, they're pushing the divide to get us divided, so we don't focus on the real problem, which is our system. That's
which is pretty smart.
That's modern society. That's in general. And that's why I don't like it when people focus on the relevant shit, because you're being distracted from the real fucking problem. Our systems are the problem. They're so bad. They are so bad.
They're pretty shit.
Ugh. Who cares what the Kardashians' relationship status is? It really doesn't matter.
Some people
now.
I would agree, but
I get it. But I say that as we sit here and play a video game, right?
Yeah.
About Brock Lesnar and have goofy fun. I understand it. I understand why we went down this direction, because we gave up on this. A lot of us gave up on the system. How many times, we sit there and say how many people, we're talking about voting. How many people vote Trudeau? A lot of people don't vote. A lot of people have given up on democracy in general. They just kind of, exist in this capitalist society and, where we have a lot of benefits, and they just kind of don't care about the larger scale perspective.
Yeah. I would say that
I understand going down that path of you as someone who even you understand, you start to gain knowledge about it, Kyle. You see the darkness of it. You do see oh man, there is some shitty ass shit going on. And I can understand how that would make you want to, a lot of things in modern society would make you want to, I'm just going to go to my own shit that I want to focus on, aka the useless shit, right?
Yeah. But who are you to say it's useless, though, right? It's what is important to other people. I would agree with you in a lot of these cases, but if somebody says, I don't care about figuring out what's going on in politics, I'll let someone else figure that out, that's their right. Now, I may not necessarily agree with them, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I don't have a lot of interest in politics because I have made the decision that unless I pay attention to them full time, which I don't have an interest in doing, I'm not going to be able to make influential enough, informed enough decisions to amount any sort of change. So instead, I'll spend my time focusing on other shit, and when big moments come around, like an election cycle, I'll go in and pay attention enough to make sure I'm making an informed decision. But that's where it stops. If somebody's made the decision, I can't keep up with the shit, I'm going to do that, that's fine. And we can't really decide what's important and what's not, right? So the same thing, I would say that people who pay attention to Kardashian things, I'm like, that's kind of a dumb thing, but that's their right to want to focus on that dumb thing. If they're consistent.
Oh yeah, like I said, I see that in the aisle or something. I'm not telling people on the street you can't do this. I'm not correcting someone when they talk about it.
No, that would be very fucking hypocritical, wouldn't it?
No, of course it would. But that doesn't mean I'm not of the opinion that it is an example of what I think is a systemic problem, not just that's an example of people I think focusing on useless, something that I think fundamentally has very little practical value. And I think that that's something that is extrapolated in not just that avenue of society, but like all over the place. Like we pretty much stopped caring to the like as a collective about a lot of major aspects of society. That kind of sucks. And I think community is one of them, and and that kind of sucks. And I don't know if it's that we stopped, and maybe it's stop caring is the wrong word. I think it's more that we're in a different time now. It's easy, like one of the things that I think is the biggest indicator of where you are in the future. Like when you look through the eras, like let's say 1960, 1970, it's never like in the old eras really defined by the tech, like really defined by these old school cars or the invention of the television, like you know what I mean. Since the dawn of the internet, so like since the 90s and the 80s, like I feel like the 80s and the 90s have their own distinct style from like a technology perspective. But like if you look at like even 2010 to 2017, like there are some significant difference between the world in 2010.
Hey, we got a better sword.
But the interesting thing is, it's very less about, I think, like yes, technology has played some role, but it's culture. Culture has changed so much in like the last 15 years. And like seeing the direction that it's kind of shaped as, and like how you define it, like you can look at every era and look at culture, but like how dynamic cultures become is really weird. It's a fascinating thing in 2017, and like you can definitely see why the divide is there. Like we talked about this I think in a drinks and discussion or with Shane at some point in the political cast, but about how everyone's kind of dug their heels in, and how as we've become so diverse, instead of like using that as a means to see how similar we are and connect and realize that like humanity's this great a massive accomplishment.
Linus is digging through a trash can.
And what we've been able to do here in Pelican Town and build this farm, how awesome it is. Instead, we're focusing on the other things, I would say fundamentally not very practical things that end up in a lot of cases dividing us. And it's like how that has come to define modern culture, I think is kind of, I don't know. I here's what I think. I think for us to get to a Star Trek future, overcoming this is probably one of our biggest hurdles. Like overcoming the fact that we're not ready for the future. We are not the Star Trek people, like from a fundamental perspective. Our society, like even if you were to insert that technology to us now, that's not where we are.
Yeah, hang on, we have to make a decision here.
Culture there fundamentally, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we have to make a decision here. Linus was just ruffling through old man George's trash, and George was like, "Hey, scare off those raccoons," and then we caught him. And Linus is like, "Hey, like I know I shouldn't be like going through his trash like a weirdo, but
yeah, we got to give it to our boy Linus."
Yeah, so we can say no. But you should get a job and stop leeching off of others. No.
It's a shame for food to go to waste. It's waste. It's just garbage.
Thanks, Brock Lesnar. I knew you were an open-minded person. I feel good about what I'm doing. I'm not harming anyone. Cool.
Exactly, right? It might not be perfect that there's a homeless guy digging through the garbage, but whatever.
He's not going to do it anyway? Okay, that's weird. You can tell him you scared off the raccoons for good. Okay, I guess that was just inevitable. Yeah, and
but
also,
anyway,
we're like
I guess
40 minutes in, so I'm gonna just head to home.
I guess I'll just say that. Yeah, I kind of think that. Yeah, that type of division right now is really one of the biggest.
Gus, the saloon guy, caught Linus, and he's like, "Wait, I know what you were doing, Linus. If you need food, just ask." Oh, that's nice. That's a nice thing in Pelican Town. Gus isn't gonna let him starve. Here, I've got a basket of zucchini fritters for you.
Oh, and for those who don't know, since we were talking about Trudeau briefly, I'll say that in terms of campaign promises, there was a big one that obviously Trudeau did not keep, which was the voting reform.
Yes.
That was one that they said they would absolutely do. Turns out now that they're elected, they were like, huh, weird. Everyone wants to vote us in. We don't need to change the system. We're good.
Mm.
Everyone hates the system until they're elected.
Yeah.
Then the system works, so they're like, huh.
That worked out the way we wanted it to, yeah.
Yeah. See, like that it's like that aspect of it.
Although he did keep probably your most your highest priority campaign promise, didn't he, Ryan?
I mean, sort of. It's still rolling out. It's kind of rolling out.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you can't say that shit takes time. Like, you can't.
True, but like, it's not perfect. Like, there's still people who will go to jail for it. like large scale possession.
Yeah, we're talking about the legalization of marijuana too.
There are people in the system right now who are wrongfully convicted that aren't going to be let loose or anything like that. Like they're not stating that they're going to basically, they're not making all the wrongs right, which kind of sucks. But
yeah, but it's still a step in the right direction, I think.
I mean, maybe some people have the argument that, well, those people were doing that when they knew it was a crime, so fuck them. It's like, come on.
Yeah, well, that's a stupid way.
This is like the prohibition of alcoholism days. Like the society has deemed this is okay, and there's not really much government can do about it other than conform. Like
we're gonna call this an episode.
Decisions are done too.
So thank you.
All right, we got F5, we got Broncos there. Don't worry, in future episodes we're gonna focus on Stardew Valley.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe occasionally. We'll steer.
Go off on these rants.
Into the realm of debates. So what did we do today, Kyle? What did we do?
Did a lot.
You remember? Give us a recap for the viewers.
We farmed. We fought. We debated.
Did we hit level 20 in the dungeon?
Yes, we did.
We did. Right on.
Yeah. Thank you all for joining us.